Hello, for those watching on the live, we're going to do things a bit backwards today, but enjoy the chaos. So welcome back, members. You probably had heard a couple of weeks ago that Erin was going to get to go to a con where she was not only going to be doing cosplay, but was going to be judging cosplay, because really, who is a better cosplayer than Erin McGowan? All other mortals should bow down to her, and so it's time to hear about how that went. You had your own booth, you were signing things, you were recruiting listeners for our podcasts, you were judging other people's cosplay, you were doing crazy shenanigans with the Gotham Sirens. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I've had 2 Comic-Cons since I was last on. The first one was here in Minnesota, up north, in Duluth, and that's the one where I was, like, featured. I had a booth. I did not sign anything. I'm not that famous, guys, but I did have a booth, and I had some prints that I sold, excuse me. But yeah, the costume contest was kind of a crazy experience. It was me and then my friend Tyson, and there was supposed to be a third person, but I don't know what happened to them. This con was brand new. It was the first year. Again, this was TeebCon, Teeb. It was so fun. Also, like, y'all got to go next year for sure. But yeah, it was the first year, so things, have a little sticky spots. We were like, I don't know who this third person is. And so we're sitting out there, just the 2 of us. All the people have signed up, and we're like, how are we going to, like, break a tie? And then the moderator came up, and we were like, is there a third judge? She was like, I thought so. And we were like,
oh no.
Okay, well, we have a friend right there, Edwin. Can he come judge? And he was in cosplay too. And she was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, go for it. And we were like, yeah.
I love it.
So then there was 3 of us on the panel, or judge panel, I suppose. It was so fun. We saw a lot of really cute costumes, some really intense, like, makeup and detailed, like, artistry as well, which was cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got to meet someone that I'm now obsessed with. I wish I knew her Insta handle, but I don't. Maybe I'll find it later. But yeah, so that experience was kind of crazy. I did learn that it's a lot for me mentally and emotionally to, like, be at a booth. Like, that's not something I've really done before. And it's just like you're 100% on, and you're just, like, sitting there like, hey, do you like my cosplays?
Yeah.
Trying to get people to talk to me.
You can't walk away, that they come up to you, it's got to be a little nut making.
Yeah, it's a little stressful. But the thing is, since I was doing 2 cosplays every day and my body paint characters, I was actually away from my booth at like 3 hours at a time because I was just in a back room painting myself. So I had some nice little breaks. But yeah, at the end of each day, I was just like, whoa, what just happened? So super cool experience, very fun. I'm very grateful. I'll probably go back next year if they ask me to be a guest again, because I'm friends with the person who put this con on. But I don't know if I'm going to be going out of my way to guest elsewhere, at least until I can get, like, a handler, maybe, like, just another person there with me. But it was a ton of fun. And then, yeah, you mentioned the Gotham City Sirens. That was at Dragon Con down in Atlanta. If y'all don't know about Dragon Con, you should know about Dragon Con. It is the craziest party con in the US that I'm aware of. We're talking, like, raves every night that don't begin until 3 a.m. and the line wraps around the outside of the building. It's just like, it goes all day, every day. Super fun. And yeah, I got to do a lot of cool collabs. I got to debut a couple new costumes as well. I did my Sith Ahsoka for the first time. Whoop, whoop.
Yep.
Who just went up on my Instagram yesterday. The photographer posted some photos that I collaborated on. And yeah, the Gotham City Sirens just came out yesterday as well. So yeah, check out my Instagram, guys. Lady Tano Creates. I've got a bunch of new stuff here. And especially in the coming months, there's just going to be more going on. But yeah, that's that was my con experiences. Dragon Con was crazy. I barely missed getting COVID, but I came back healthy enough because I got COVID last year. But this year my roommate caught it and I made it unscathed somehow. So despite some exhaustion and like permanent hangover for like 2 days, I was doing I did really good coming out of Dragon Con.
Well done. Yeah, I was at PAX West that weekend, which is I think kind of similar in size. It's video game focused though. It's a little less of a party con, but there's a good deal of getting down late at night. And similarly, a lot of people got COVID. I did not. I was masking a lot. We tried to take good cautions. So always a good thing there. Well, that's awesome. And so let me just ask. Well, I'm going to ask the fun question and then get kind of talk to people about how they can get involved in this kind of stuff that you're doing. So give me the full rundown of costumes, because what I've seen so far is Ahsoka, obviously. There's Dark Jedi Ahsoka, or Sith Ahsoka. There's your Twi'lek rogue pirate girl, who basically looks like she walked straight out of Star Wars Outlaws, which I don't know if you've played that game,
yes,
but it's fantastic. I've seen you do Poison Ivy, and I've seen you do Black Cat.
Yes.
Who else is on the list?
Yeah, so right now I've got my season 7 Mandalore Ahsoka Tano. I do, like you said, a Sith Ahsoka. I do Poison Ivy from the New 52 comics. And that's also the character that I did for the Gotham City like pool party sirens photo shoot or photo session that we did. I'm working on another version of Ivy as well, but I need to stop spending so much money on cosplay, so that might be
That's
out
fair. That's fair.
in ways, unless I can start making money from it. But I also do a zombie version of my smuggler. Her name is No Gluten, which is a joke because I can't eat gluten.
Love it.
But yeah, I do her as a zombie. I do Mystique from the X-Men, her classic comic book outfit, the white dress with the slits. And then I also do a version of her. I don't know which comic it's from, but it's where she's wearing like a black leather crop top and boots. So I do 2 Mystiques. And then I recently debuted Shin Hati from the Ahsoka show.
I saw that one was amazing as well.
Love it. Oh my God, it's so fun. I love being Shin. Yeah, that was a really, really fun cosplay. And one of my good friends did Balin, so we got to do like a photo session together and like hang out all day and be like squad. So that was super fun at Dragon Con. But yeah, I've got Shin, and then I have Felicia Hardy, Black Cat. Right now I do a version of her that's like a symbiote, like infected, like venom symbiote. But again, if I can start making money from cosplay, then I'm gonna get her like a proper cat suit and like look the way that she's supposed to look as Black Cat.
Fantastic.
And
do you have any links where people can buy your photos or things like that?
No. Well, yes and no. So no, I'm working on something. There's one cosplay I forgot that I want to throw in there.
Sure, go ahead.
So then my last and kind of most recent cosplay is Luna from Hell of a Boss, which is like the cartoon series that is in the same universe as Has Been Hotel. So love that. My friend does Blitz, which is her father. So that's really fun. And then upcoming is Raven from Teen Titans. That's in the mix here. That's going to be here soon. So I'm really excited about that one. But yeah, I am kind of starting to launch some more money-making things, as in a Ko-Fi. So I'm launching a Ko-Fi. I'm going to start putting up like exclusive sets of photos on there because there's certain cosplays. I like to keep my page very PG, you know? And not to say that any of this will be NSFW or anything like that. Nothing OnlyFans related. Like, I am a shy Christian girl, okay? But at the same time, some of my patients follow me on Instagram. So I don't want to post like stuff in a tight corset. Like, that just feels weird. So I'm going to start putting that up on Ko-Fi, just as little exclusive sets that you can buy. And then I'll also put my prints to sell up there as well. And I have prints of Poison Ivy, Mystique, Ahsoka, and No as well. So yeah, that's going to be kind of in the scene this coming Friday, which is the 19th of September. Nope. 20th of September. There we go. So yeah, that's one of my first set of exclusive photos. I did Black Cat first. So my kitty cat photos will be hitting the Ko-Fi on Friday. Otherwise, just give me a follow, like, and comment, interact. But yeah, if you guys want to get like involved in cosplay stuff, it's honestly pretty straightforward. just pick a character that you really like that makes you feel like comfortable and confident. Because if it's not somebody that you love, it's not going to be motivating to create or to wear. And
Right.
on that, you don't have to create your own cosplays. You can buy every single piece of your cosplay, and that's okay. That's still
Yeah.
really cool. You put in the effort and the time and the money to find these pieces and fit them for yourself and whatnot. So I think that's something that scares a lot of people away, is this idea or pressure of like, oh my God, I have to like make this myself. You don't. I make
Right.
some stuff myself. I buy a lot of stuff too, because I'm not a master seamstress.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I feel like to get into cosplay, find a character you like, and then what helped me was finding people on Instagram who cosplay that character and getting
Mm,
excited about their stuff and following them. And so many people in the cosplay community are so kind. Like, you can literally DM somebody with 100,000 followers asking them a question about like, "Oh, how did you make this aspect of your cosplay?" or "Oh, do you have any recommendations?" And they'll get back to you within like 24 hours. Like, it's
I love that.
crazy. Like, I mean, obviously there's assholes everywhere. There's people who are going to ignore you, sure. But of the people that I've reached out to, I've literally never had somebody tell me to fuck off or just ignore me, which is
Yeah.
really freaking cool. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into cosplay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And I think that's, to me, I think that really answers two questions that I know a lot of people have. One is just about the general accessibility. And, I think it's really good to know that, like, yes, you can make your own stuff, and that's awesome. And maybe that's going to be more for like the contest stuff. But also, if you just want to walk around a con or have fun in cosplay and take some great photographs or just interact with people, do it, get the stuff you get from a store or online can be
Yeah.
fantastic. And I often think there's also kind of a middle ground of, um, a lot of the cosplayers who I know, that you can commission them to make something for yourself. Like,
Hmm.
it's going to cost a little bit more than it probably costs a lot more than, just buying something that's mass produced. But now it's going to be something that's tailored to you, and it's going to be something that's helping to support a fellow cosplayer and all this kind of stuff. As well as the fact that, as you said, sometimes it's the makeup and the hair. I've definitely seen cosplay where they're cosplaying someone who wears brown pants, and so they just got a pair of brown pants. They don't look exactly like it, and it's a black. It won't be brown or black, but like blue pants and a black tank top, and it doesn't look
Hmm.
exactly like it. But you look at the makeup and the hair and like the weapon they're carrying, and you know exactly who the character is.
Yeah.
Like there's so many ways to do things.
Yeah, there is a ton of different aspects to a cosplay. Like, if you don't have the money to go all out on the clothes, find another way to embellish it that makes you
Yeah.
feel unique and special. That's the other thing, is several of my cosplays are not like screen or comic accurate,
Hmm.
because I got excited about having a ton of little skulls dangling off Mystique's belt. I felt like it made her more witchy, you know? Or like
Yeah.
Ahsoka, her Leku are so much longer for my Ahsoka than they are in the show, but that's okay because I like having long noodle tail heads, you know? Like, I
Right.
just like that. Um,
Well, like you said, Sith Ahsoka is not something that exists, but you
no, it is
created it.
not. Yes, I did. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a baddie. She's also really hot to wear. It's just all black leather. Bro, I wore this in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, in August. I was like passing away. I was passing away.
The alcohol consumption and the outfit choices, I think there's sort of a causal link, and you don't really know where it starts, the chicken or the egg, but they definitely all feed into each other.
It just turns into a mess of a 5-day experience, but at the end of the day,
Yeah,
it's so fun and it's worth it.
definitely, definitely. Well, I think this is a fantastic topic. We're gonna wrap up here for this member section, but we're definitely gonna start talking to you more about it. I'd love to actually get you to do a full episode on this, talking about the different characters, what it's like to be in those mindsets and stuff like that. We'll probably do that for the superhero ethics podcast, especially because you're doing so many comics characters and things like that. So I'll just end with, what's one last thought you want to share with people who are curious about cosplay? Or actually, I'm going to ask a better question,
Okay.
because this is a thing that I think gets a lot of people in trouble, and a lot of people are coming from bad places, but a lot of people are maybe trying to do something nice but are really bad at it. What's the way that a person, particularly a male-shaped person, can show appreciation for someone's cosplay and perhaps their attractiveness in said cosplay without being a creep?
Um, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't feel like you need to portray that you find it attractive. You can
Mm-hmm.
just say like, "Hey, that's a really cool costume."
Yeah.
But the moment you make it sexual, like that's one thing
Mm-hmm.
that's very big in the cosplay community is that cosplay is not consent. I can be wearing
Right.
practically fucking nothing. That does not give you the right to touch me or say creepy shit to me or
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, just I don't know. I feel like for me, a general rule of like cosplay and finding it attractive or being like sexually attracted to things with cosplay, normal, cool, super great, as you should. But it just doesn't need to come out your mouth if it's somebody
Yeah.
you don't know, you know? Like if
Yeah.
that's your friend and they're gonna get like hyped up, be like, girl, you look sexy, you know? But if it's a stranger, you just don't need to say that. You can say
Yeah.
that's like you look really good. That's a really cool cosplay, you know? But just never, as a general rule, don't comment on people's body parts, even if it's a
Mm-hmm.
positive thing. Don't comment
Yeah.
on my ass. Don't comment on my tits. I don't want you to. They're
Yeah.
just
That's
a
really
part of
creepy.
me. It's a
Yeah.
body, you know? Just tell me that the cosplay looks cool or you really love the character, you know? Um, so yeah, I don't know, because that is something that a lot of female cosplayers and male cosplayers actually get too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've one of my friends had people like chase her husband down and like fucking try and choke him and like do weird shit because he's really hot, but it's like leave him alone. Um, so yeah, just kind of mind your business, show your appreciation respectfully,
Mm-hmm.
and don't be creepy. I
Yeah.
hope that helps.
No, I think it does, and I think that's the. And I debated asking about the attractiveness, but I know that it's like, I had the idea, of course, like it's not something you should do, but a lot of people like that's their starting point, and I think that's the really good way to think about
Yeah.
it. Is like, why would you want to convey that? And to me, what a rule of thumb that I always like to use is, are you saying this because you want the person to feel better about not feel bad? Are you saying this because you want the person to feel good and complimented, or are you saying this because you're trying to initiate some kind of conversation that you hope goes in a flirtatious direction or something like that? And I think a good rule is if it's the second, don't do it. Like
I
say the
mean,
kind of
even if it's
thing.
the first, you really don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the thing is, you don't know how someone is gonna feel based on what you say to them. And like, shit, I had a good point. Where'd it go? There it is. Um, you can tell somebody they look good, but like most cosplayers know they look good. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
most female cosplayers, like we know we look good. Like if we're
Yeah.
wearing one of like the kind of hot cosplays, we know you're looking, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. But that doesn't mean you have to say what you're looking at to my face.
Oh yeah, no, of course. I mean, one thing
Yeah.
I've also heard a lot is the like compliment specific things, like oh my god, your boots, look so accurate, or I love what you're doing with the lightsabers. Things that are about, as you said, complimenting the cosplay, not complimenting the body that's inside of it or being shown off by it or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Any other last things you want to add to this? Let me ask you again. Uh, so for your sake, though, what's the last thing you want to say as we wrap up?
Um, last thing about cosplay, guys, just like get into it, okay? Like the amount of people that I've talked to, I'm pretty young, I'm 22, but a lot of my friends who cosplay are in their early 30s, late 30s, stuff like that. And one of my friends was like, "Yeah, I went to Comic Cons for years and I so wanted to dress up and I just like didn't feel confident." And after like 10 years, he finally started cosplaying, and he has one of the best fucking Batman cosplays and Red Hood cosplays I've ever seen. Like, he does it so sick. Um, so yeah, just like if you want to, go for it. And
That's
you don't
awesome.
have to be the best out there. Just buy a Deadpool suit on Amazon, $35. That's okay. That's cool.
Yeah,
That's where I got my black cat suit, $35. Like, easy. Um, so yeah, just give it a go. Try not to be scared
yeah,
because there's other people at the con. Here's the thing: if you're going to a Comic Con, people aren't going to make fun of you
yeah.
because everyone there is a nerd.
Idiots who don't go might make fun of you, but like those days are mostly past
Correct.
anyway. But yeah,
Correct. When you're in the con space, you're safe.
yeah, exactly. Well, Erin, thank you so much. This is great. To our members, thank you all so much. We have spoken. All right. It sounds like Alex is not going to be able to make it, so I think we're going to just jump in. Let me check exactly what he said. All right. Since we have the hard out in an hour, let's just go ahead and get started. We'll do the ad on Monday, I think. Also, do you want me just to I think I didn't get to. So thinking, do you want me to cut out that whole part about like asking about what people should or shouldn't say, or do you think it was a good conversation?
No, I think it's a good conversation. I think it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's better to like have discourse about it than like not and have a bunch of people thinking something that I just clarified would be uncomfortable, thinking that that's an okay thing to say. So yeah, I'm fine.
No, I think it's super helpful. I love getting the consent cosplays and consent stuff out there. Getting the like, just because you're showing off a body part doesn't mean you want to be commented on that body part. Like all that is super important. Cool. All right, let's get started with Rogue One, and then we will get going. I'm just going to clap also so I can find this later. You need to clap.
I was clapping emotionally.
No comment. Hello and welcome back to the Star Wars Generations podcast. Take that again. Hello and welcome back to the Star Wars Generations podcast. Friends, we are so happy because we're getting to resume our conversation about the movies. We have some other episodes that are going to be mixed in. There's some more Star Wars content coming later this year that we're going to be talking about. I've been enjoying the Star Wars Outlaws games, which I really want to talk to folks about. But today we are talking about the next movie in our journey, Rogue One. And this is a movie about people showing up when they're ready. Some of them are ready from the start. Others of them have to show up partway through. So right now it's myself and Erin McGowan. Alex Corman, he's going to be that guy who comes to the U-Wing, right at the last battle. He's going to be jumping on when he can.
He's the bandwagon rebel. He's the guy that just defected from the Empire.
Exactly. So let me just start by, what'd you think of this movie?
I love it. Oh my God. This is every time people ask me my favorite Star Wars movie, this is the answer. And it surprises most people. People don't see it coming, but this is a great fucking film. And I thought that since the moment it came out. I've seen it like, okay, this is not going to be Alex Corman numbers, but I saw it like 4 times in theaters. I'm sure he saw it like fucking 12 or something crazy. But yeah, I just loved it. And it's such an important story. And I love how much it kind of grounds and brings the Star Wars world into realism.
Yeah.
Because it's not black and white. Not every good guy is truly a good guy. And this is like the kind of thing that really got delved into in Andor even more. But Rogue One walked so Andor could run,
Yes.
Like
100%.
We needed this film to bring a more adult tone to Star Wars.
Having a movie where your male protagonist and hero, who you're supposed to have all the happy feelings for, shoots his ally in order to escape. Like, that's not heroic. That is not what the Jedi would ever do. But it's what he has to do in that moment. And for me, I love the high adventure of the Star Wars movies. But this feels so much, like you said, it feels so much more realistic, There's very little Sith powers, or there's very little Force powers except for Darth Vader doing Darth Vader things. There's most of these people, like, if these people don't do their mission, Luke Skywalker never does what he does. But Luke Skywalker doesn't know any of their names. Neither does Leia, neither does Han, none of those people do. And it's just, there were so many things that I loved about this movie. And it's funny because as I rewatch it, I'm reminded, and I think this is an important conversation to have within Star Wars right now. I love the movie so much that I forgive the ginormous plot holes that there are and continuity errors of things like, things happening that just doesn't, like, I have no idea how fast light speed is and where all these places are because ships appear at the speed of plot. And, but the thing is, it's so good and it does so many things so well that we don't care. Because the fact is, no Star Wars project has been perfect. They all have little things like this. And it's fun to laugh at them. But the fact is, this is just a great movie.
Yeah. Light speed has never been a science and it never will be. It's just like you said, it's speed of the plot. It's just the way it goes. But yeah, no, I agree. This movie is, ugh, it's so good. Let's get into it. Where do you want to start? Plot points or characters?
Let's start with some of the plot points. This was such and this may be more overall, but just this was such a different kind of movie from everything we've seen in Star Wars. There was no plot crawl at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
The music was just like this one jarring note instead of what we're used to. How did it feel watching this movie that was so much grittier, so much realer, so different from the kind of high space fantasy that we're used to in Star Wars?
Well, my first time watching it through, I went in pretty naive. I was like, it's a Star Wars movie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it through that lens, like, until the 11th hour. Like, literally, they're, like, climbing down the tower on forgot the planet, but whatever
Scarif.
planet. Scarif, thank you. They're, like, climbing down the tower. Everything's gonna end, and I'm like, I wonder how they're getting out of this one alive. Erin, they're getting out alive. I didn't know
spoilers,
that.
they all die.
Spoiler, they all die. Oh my god! I didn't see it coming. It was horrifying.
Oh wow,
it
that's
was
awesome.
So sad. No,
Sure.
I can be so naive. And as like a young budding bisexual that was equal parts in love with Cassian and Jin, like Diego Luna and Felicity Jones, it's unfair to put them across from each other. It's
really
unfair.
Is.
They are very attractive people.
It really is.
And then to see them just blink into nothingness. I was heartbroken. Yeah. It was horrible.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, well, the council has spoken, but Alex has decided to defy the council and join us even though he's late. Alex Corman, what do you think of Rogue One?
It's one of my favorite Star Wars movies ever made. I think it's potentially the best thing Disney's made in the Star Wars era. I believe that everything from the acting, the interesting story, it makes me really sad that they got away from anthology films, because I understand that Solo maybe wasn't as good, but like Rogue One really just knocked it out of the park for me. And I remember seeing it in theaters and accidentally leaving a bruise on my friend's leg because I was just pounding on it when Vader was going down the hallway, and seeing that for the first time, because I was just losing my mind.
My God.
Losing my mind, Erin.
It was so much good. And we're talking just now about how was it for you seeing this movie that was so different from every other Star Wars thing that we'd had?
You know, I liked it because, especially at that time, we hadn't really broken away from, you know, the main storyline. I mean, even episode 7 was still in line with its new characters, and Rogue One had some familiar faces in, you know, like little cameos of, like, you know, Mon Mothma, and you kind of knew what was happening, but by and large, you know, outside of her, like Vader, like there wasn't really that many familiar faces. But it was funny because it was the first time we'd actually get to see like a ground level movie about the rebellion. It was like, this is what went down. And I understand some people were like, this whole movie was made just to fill a plot hole. And I don't really think that's true, but even if it was the best damn plot hole fill done ever then. Because like, and it does, I think, add so much extra meaning to episode 4, because like originally when the movie was made, it was like, here's the weakness in the Death Star. But now to know that, like, Not Orson Krennic, Galen Erso, like risked his life, died, and put so much of his time, effort, and life on the line to purposely build a bomb in the Death Star, like, just, and knowing what the Rogue One team went through to get the Death Star plans, and it just put so much more credence and meaning to that mission, and the battle over Yavin and all of that. Just it was just wonderful. It tied it in while still being unique. Yeah, we got to see Vader's castle, and Vader's castle made me lose my freaking shit in theaters to know that little Annie built his castle on the site of his greatest failure.
I like it. Well, and so I mentioned before you got here, Alex, that I think one of the things that is great is that, like a lot of Star Wars movies, it's such a good movie and we so enjoy it that we forget about the fact that there's some massive plot holes and continuity errors. And I just want to lift up a couple. We're not going to spend the whole episode talking about these, but just to give 2 examples, because they're so much about the scenes you just talked about. First of all, and this is one I hadn't noticed until this time, as all the ships are taking off, and we've already heard that General Radiss's ship has already left. We see C-3PO and R2-D2 watching them take off. Then we watch Princess Leia's ship take off from Admiral Radiss's ship, which we find out in No Hope has C-3PO and R2-D2 on it.
Oh.
So that's a little weird. But the more important one, which again, it's like...
Maybe they took a shuttle.
Again, this one doesn't make sense, but like, who cares? Vader watches Princess Leia's ship break away. He watched them run the plans onto the ship. And then when they show up in the next movie, she's like, oh no, we're on a mercy mission. I don't know what you're... Like, he saw them! And she knows he saw them.
Well, to be fair, do we think... So, okay, well... The thing is, I guess they do have hyperspace tracking, but I guess she was trying to play... I mean, what else are you going to say in the situation? Like, yeah, we have the plan. Screw you. Yeah. I guess like, you have to lie. Like, I think I'm going to chalk that up more to, like, desperation time. I don't know what you were talking about. Because Vader is... Like, in episode 4, he is so adamant. I know the plans are there. I know they're there. Like, we intercepted...
The rest of the crew is worried that he's not justified in taking her ship. Like, I went back and watched those scenes.
Well, do you think the stormtroopers knew?
Well, his other officers who were on the ship with him and thus would have seen her ship break away. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time.
No, right. I guess it doesn't bother me that much, but I get what you mean.
My whole point is it doesn't bother me at all. I think it's worth pointing out.
Fair.
But like the reason I bring it up now is that I think with more recent Star Wars content, people are bringing up things like that. But the fact is, they've always been in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, dude. There's errors across the board.
The Force is a dying religion that most of the people who were officers with Vader on the Death Star would have remembered fighting with the Jedi 19 years ago. Like,
yeah, and the solution to the first Death Star gets blown up was build a second Death Star. Can you imagine if they included a second Star Killer base in Episode 9? Like, people would be up in arms, say it's lazy story writing. That everyone wants the Lego Star Wars unfinished Death Star, and everyone wants, to talk about. Yeah, I agree.
Nope.
Anyway, and because I will say, I don't cry at movies often. At least I didn't back then. I've been in therapy for a while and more in touch with my feelings, and I do a lot more now. But when I realized that the plans had gone to Leia, and because it was pretty recently, I think after Carrie Fisher had passed away, and she turned and just said that one word, hope, I was bawling. It was such a beautiful way of showing me this beautiful story that was below the radar screen to everything we've seen in the movies, but was so vital to the movies, and then tying it together with just that one moment was just chef kiss perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she had died before that movie. Didn't she die right before The Last Jedi came out?
Oh, you're right. Okay.
I think it was close to her death time, though. It was like less than a year from her dying. Yeah, that movie also made me very emotional. I don't think I cried at the end because I just expected everyone to die. Actually, that's a lie. What one death hit me harder than everyone else's, and it's the one character's name I still cannot pronounce. Is it Chirrut? Chirrut? Bruh, that got me. Yeah. That got me. Like I won't like. Sure, it was sad when all the other characters died, but that got me. Like his friend watching him die, and then just I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me. And as he's holding him in his arms, and
yeah,
that was like a Jedi's death, even though he wasn't a Jedi. Like very just like that was beautiful.
Well, yeah, that shit gutted me.
Mm-hmm. And I think I just loved everything about the Guardians of the Whills because it really reminded you that yes, there are the Jedi, but it's kind of like you've got clergy in a religion, but you still got lots of believers and worshipers. And clearly, I think he's supposed to be just a tiny bit Force sensitive, and it just felt to me like it blurred the lines of that's not just a dyad of like you're either a Jedi or you're not Force sensitive at all, but there's lots of middle ground, and people have these beliefs and all these kind of things.
I also want to just very quickly point out that I don't want to dwell on it either. The biggest, not continuity error, but thing that bothered me in Rogue One, and it's not that big, but it's during the whole hallway scene. Yes, it was badass. It was freaking cool. I love it more than anything. Vader, all I had to do was use the Force to grab the plans from the guy. Like he made it so much more dramatic than it had to be. Now maybe he just couldn't see it. But you would think that like one of the most powerful force-sensitive beings in the galaxy would be able to figure out that the guy at the end of the hallway has the plans as he's trying to open the door and could just yeet it from him. I don't know. Just my opinion.
There's lots of little things like that don't really make any sense.
Yeah.
But we're just swept along with it.
But we are about to make something dramatic.
I wonder, do you think that it's easier to get swept up in it in a movie than it is in a TV show? Because of the TV show, you just have more time, like in between episodes and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, after I finish a movie, no matter what is presented before me in a Star Wars movie, after the movie ends, I think it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like even like episode 9, I'm an episode 9 apologizer. I like it. But right after it came out, I was like, oh my God, this may be the best thing I've ever seen. And it took me a little while, like a few hours to like calm down from the high to start critiquing it. And with a show, every episode only being, even if it's an hour-long episode, you have time to nitpick before the next one, and then more of the next one. There's more breaks versus the movie. You're just in it, and you're like, "Holy shit! I just been slapped across the face by the hand of God," and it takes you time to come down from that.
I think one other reason that the movie hit me so hard, and I just want to say this, and then we'll get into more like specifics about characters and plot points and stuff. The movie came out in December of 2016, which was shortly after the election of Donald Trump. And I'm not going to get super political with this, but I'll just say that for a lot of folks like myself who were queer or people of color or disabled people or immigrants or anything like that, this was a really horrifyingly scary time. Both about like the fact that he won, but also the fact of like coming to terms with the fact that so many people in our country were comfortable with the kind of things he was saying. And Star Wars has often been there for me at times that I really needed it. And I talked about The Force Awakens coming out right when I was coming out of like kind of the worst depression of my life. And this, I think, was, for a lot of people I was in contact with, we all talked about it and going to see it. It was a reminder of what rebellions can look like and what fighting against tyranny looks like. And that sometimes the people you think are your allies are too scared to fight and don't believe you when they tell them how bad things are. And like, I've come to in time better understand where they're coming from. But that first time I watched it, I had just so much anger against all the people who were like, no, we shouldn't do this. The alliance should break up, or I don't believe you because you're a criminal or whatever. I think the movie came out at such the perfect time.
Erin, you have a thought?
I mean, not really on the political scene at the time. I was too young to vote. And I was still very much under my parents' roof of thought. So I was pretty oblivious to the political and social climate at the time. I was like,
I wouldn't expect anyone else to. Yeah, that's fair.
But that's good to know. Like I feel like it was a very poignant time, like looking back in history for that to come out of just like such a time of just unrest. Like regardless of what side you were on, shit wasn't good. Like there was a lot of unrest. There was a lot of like tension and just disquiet and uncertainty, in America specifically. And yeah, it was interesting to have this different type of a story and different type of almost different style of Star Wars media brought and introduced to us in a time like that. And the movie did really, really well. And I think that's why we kind of got as much content as we have since that is more similar to that movie. These more serious shows and things like that. Not that the sequel trilogy isn't, serious and adult themed. It is, but you know what I mean? It's grittier. It's darker. It's a little more realistic. Yeah.
I think it was originally even darker, and they like rewrote a lot of it because it was too dark if I remember the news reports at the time.
I thought it went the other way. But either way, what I do know is that my one anger about it the first time I saw it is in the trailer, I saw what I thought was going to be the greatest line ever, but they cut it when she's being interrogated by the rebels. And she says, and they're asking her about why she does all this messed up stuff. And she says, well, this is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel. Which I just thought was hilarious.
Did you not say that in the movie?
Say again?
She doesn't say that in the movie?
No, she doesn't. She said it in the trailers.
Maybe I'm just headcanon because I've seen that trailer so many times.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, Rogue One. I also want to start. I was just saying quickly. I feel like I also think it stands out because across the board in the original movies, the only like kind of ground, in-depth ground operation. We see a little bit on Hoth, but like really like Endor, and that's more of a stealth mission. It's not really like any intensive war. Like Rogue One, we're seeing like in the air, but also like deep on the ground fighting and like how the rebellion guerrilla warfare was working, and we get to hear like Saw Gerrera's ideologies, like the different ideologies in the infighting within the rebellion. Like in that one meeting where like they're all, should we like actually make this move? Are we strong enough? It's cool to see, like, just like any other rebellion, it was so close, a thread of failing. I mean, like it basically took people rebelling within the rebellion to actually spark what we see in the original trilogy, and all the boldness that that they ended up taking on. But it's cool to see how close it came to failing, which I think does also mirror the real world, which is like those momentary decisions, individuals making sacrifices like that are the difference between like freedom or tyranny in this instance, a galaxy.
Mm-hmm. And I thought, again, I promise we're going to get to the characters, but what you brought up hit something else I wanted to say. At the time that we were watching this movie, the way that warfare is being portrayed, I think, is very intentionally linked to real world conflicts that people have a lot of mixed feelings about. That first battle on Jeddah, where it's the Saw Gerrera's rebels against the Empire, and our heroes are kind of caught in the middle and not really sure. They kind of shoot people on both sides at one point. That was done in like Jeddah City looks mountainous and kind of desert like, and it's all very brown. And they talk about religious fanatics being the attackers. That very much, for people who were watching at that time, brought to mind the images we were seeing on our TVs about Afghanistan and Iraq and the conflicts happening there. And then in that battle in Scarif, to me, when we see all the shots of these like gunships with big open spaces on the side that people are shooting machine gun type things out of, and troops like jumping out to join in the fight,
Vietnam.
I've seen that in a million Vietnam movies.
Yeah.
Like, because that looked so much like the Vietnam helicopters. So it just seemed a really intentional way of like, Star Wars originally was like, the heroes against the Nazis, and that's really clear cut. But this is a lot more new. Like, I think the Empire is still clearly very, 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 very bad. But like, it's the idea that you have to make moral compromises, but then you also have to question those as part of warfare.
And Andor, the series, took that and really ran with it, and that's how we got one of the better Star Wars series as well. Also, I know we're gonna get to the characters. Very, very last thing. The cinematography in this movie, by the way, is my favorite. Well, maybe it's either this or The Last Jedi, but it's one of the best. I mean, that one frame, that one of the X-Wing coming out of hyperspace where like the camera angle is on the outside of it, rent-free in my head. Or like the sweeping scenes on the first planet with the black sand beaches that was filmed in Iceland, where they first go after Galen and little Jin or so. Just so much of it is so like sweeping and giant and beautiful. It just, to me, it felt like the best that Star Wars could be. And it felt like Rogue One, to me, felt like if the original trilogy was made in the modern era, this is what it would have looked like. This is what like George Lucas kind of saw in his head, from my opinion, and just didn't have the technology at the time to make it like that. But like, it just, to me, it felt like the most true modern Star Wars film that felt like what the originals felt like, as far as like cinematography, scheming, everything, down to the fact that like in the space battle, they actually, when they were peering into the cockpits, they actually used a deleted cockpit frame from A New Hope. A fun fact, like actually filmed in 1977. One of those cockpit frames are from 1977.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I don't know. I thought it was super cool. I love shit like that.
So I think there's a lot of great characters, but I want to start with Cassian Andor, because I already commented on how, like, this is a hero who the first thing we see him do is shoot his own ally in the back in order to allow himself to escape.
Love that.
Erin, what was that like for you, seeing that, and like then seeing him become this hero?
I'm gonna be honest. did not mean anything to me the first time I watched it. I was like, well,
That's fair.
shit's tough. This is war. You know, like I feel like I've seen so many like spy movies and stuff like that, which
Yeah, that's
is
fair.
what this felt like. You know, like at the end of the
Mhm.
day, he's a spy. He's not necessarily like a ground soldier. He's a spy. And
Yeah.
so it didn't really take me by surprise because it's just a character that you don't know yet. And it just kind of like, I feel like set the tone of the movie for me. Was just like, oh, okay, so it's not heroes and villains. It's different. It's a gray world. And we're going to learn more about this character and kind of what motivates him. Because it is a very interesting scene. Like you see, it's not something Cassian wants to do.
Yeah.
But never does he think he's not going to do it at the same time.
And the fantastic acting of Diego Luna, because he does it, but then for a moment there's a sort of sense of like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so well done.
But then it's also like the trauma of I've had to do this before, so I'm going to move on. Like I'm going to take that minute, but then I'm just like, I have to just keep going. I have to just keep moving. Yeah. And we see now, especially in Andor, what he went through to make him like that. But yeah, I think when I saw it, I also didn't have my initial reaction was like, damn! Like that was just so immediate. He was like, don't worry. Death. Like, God, cold-blooded was my first instinct. And then as the movie went on, I still kind of thought he was from my perspective, he seemed almost a little bit too like rigid in the rules. Like I think the rebellion is at its worst when it's super strict about rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Jin really helped him kind of open his eyes more and get laxer with those rules. It's funny though, because in the Andor series, he's really lax with them and he kind of falls more in line with it over time. So I'm very curious to see how season 2 ties Rogue One Andor to season 1 Cassian Andor, if that made sense. There's just a difference. Like I don't know, he seems way more cavalier in the show, and then in the beginning of Rogue One, he seems very like I'm pissed. I will do dirty shit when I have to get my hands dirty, but I'm gonna follow the rules and the orders of my superiors within this military hierarchy that's been created. And that just doesn't seem like something that like Andor from season 1 would necessarily do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe the prison broke him.
It would break me.
Mm-hmm. So, Erin, where does he wind up falling for you in terms of like as a character? Let me ask that again. So, okay. All right, moving past that one moment though, Erin, what else do you think about him as a character?
I've always really liked Cassian, and not just because he's pretty. That helps.
He is very pretty.
Being that I was a teenage girl when this movie came out. But I liked how determined and almost like sure of himself he is. Like he's very unsure about a lot of shit, but he really fakes it till he makes it, you know?
Yeah.
Like that. He taught me something in life. I'm great at that now. I'm great at bullshitting, you know? And so I just feel like it's cool to see a character that has such emotional depth. And that comes from Diego Luna being such a good actor that he can portray all these things about like being a hardened criminal, you know, willing to do criminal in quotes, a hardened rebel, willing and ready to do whatever is necessary, but also someone who does deep down, like he has this like hope, you know, like that's why he's in it. And he's willing to, like you said, Alex, kind of like push past the rules that he is so strongly set in at the beginning of the movie because he starts to come along to Jin's side of thinking. And I think that the two characters separately, very incredible characters, but I feel like they were really, and of course they were designed to play off each other really well. And that's kind of the point of the movie. But it was just so well done how those two characters interacted from start to finish, just this clashing of these two really strong personalities and kind of where that left them.
Yeah, I thought the interplay between them was just so well done, particularly because there was never really a moment where it felt like one of them was clearly right and one of them was clearly wrong. You know, like I did feel like I wanted Jin to want to join up and I hated that she kind of had this very cynical attitude. But then, like when she said, you know, but then like when she said, when someone asks her like, do you really want to see the Imperial flag flying over the whole galaxy? And she says, it doesn't matter if you never look up. It reminded me, like, again, going back to the conversations I was having, there were people I knew who were in really bad situations who were like, it's not going to matter to me. Like, I'm already, unable to get a job, unable to get any kind of, things like that. And I'm not going to get into politics like voting or not, but like, I don't think everyone should vote, but like I understand the level of hopelessness and the level of everything is out to get me. So why do I care who it is who's holding the whip that's attacking me, And that wrapped into the conversation of hope and the fact that I feel like on some level it doesn't have to be completely resolved, that part of what Cassian and Jyn do is just to kind of say, like, I see you and I see where you're coming from and I get where you're coming from. And we're working together and we don't have to agree on this entirely because we believe in hope and we believe in getting this done.
Then you have K2, one of the funniest droids in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
That dude was the greatest comedic humor. Actually, high key, maybe I was most emotional when he died, and that was a droid.
Yeah.
Because he was so funny. I was so attached to him. And then he sacrifices himself for Jyn and Cassian in such a powerful way. After, I might add, my man takes down so many stormtroopers.
A ton of stormtroopers.
He was like not messing around. But
and he takes out a bunch of like his own droid types, right? Like
he takes down one to take his memory.
He's whipping his own ass.
Yeah. But I will say that like when he died, I knew no one was surviving.
Yeah.
I just knew it. I was like,
I think that's when it started to get to me too. Because Bodhi died first, I believe, right? The pilot.
Yeah.
And then was it Chirrut and Baze or was it K2 next?
Chirrut and Baze, I think, are next.
And then it's K2.
And it's like I'm starting to get a bad feeling. And then K2 died, and I was like, okay, guys, this isn't really funny anymore. Come on, guys, this isn't funny. I want you to stop killing my characters, guys. It's not cute anymore. I get it. We had to have some emotional loss. Like they're gonna be okay, right? Alex, you missed this, but I covered that the first time I watched this movie, I was so truly and genuinely naive. I believed until the 11th hour that someone was gonna fly in and save Cassian and Jyn. I thought they were making it out of there.
I believe you. Everything I know about you makes me believe that you would believe that to the last moment.
That's hurtful.
Yeah.
You're just an optimist.
I think I was coming from the exact opposite perspective. I went in thinking like, oh, all right, well, I know this sounds dark, but I hope they kill everyone off because or else like we're going to have more plot holes of like, why didn't those people continue to do good things? And I was a little bit cynical like that. And then it happened the way it did. And I was like, oh my God, they did what I thought they were going to do, but I'm sobbing about it. I'm not cynical about it in the slightest. And I just, again, thought that was so brilliantly done.
I also learned, I should retcon this, but in episode 5 on Hoth, the ship that finds Luke in the middle of the ice desert, tundra, that's the word, tundra, is called Rogue 2. And it's because, again, in retrospective canon, Rogue 1 as a moniker was retired across the entire rebellion in honor of the Rogue One soldiers who died. And so Rogue 2 is the earliest call number they can use.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. This movie hit hard, but can we, before we talk about Jyn, because I know we have to talk about Jyn, can we talk about Orson Krennic?
Let's talk about Krennic.
Because he's one of my favorite characters.
He's such a bastard.
I think he embodies to me the Empire. Yeah. Like a really smart guy, really intelligent, manipulative as hell, greedy as hell, and like always wants more, never satisfied, always trying to play the different parties, like trying to schmooze his way with the Emperor, and then like always kind of butthurt, kind of like, I don't know, like just always butthurt about everything, and like constantly up against it with Grand Moff Tarkin, but having to also schmooze to him because he's also his superior. I mean, Erin can't see my name, but today my name in all caps is my achievement. That is where we stand today, among my achievement, not yours. And Grand Moff Tarkin's like, sucks to suck, buddy. This is how it works.
Damn.
And like, he's such an interesting character to me. And like, I've liked seeing him built out in the some of the Thrawn books and other pieces of Star Wars media. I'm excited to see him in season 2. Sorry, cut that. Spoiler alert. If you haven't heard, Orson Krennic will be in season 2 of Andor, so that would be really freaking cool. Slay. But I think he's such an interesting character because he really does embody the gluttony that the Empire is, and the it's like you have so many smart people. By every retrospect, the Empire should have lasted much longer than it did, but because of the greed of people like Krennic, up until the moment of his death. And his death in that movie is so poetic. Like that scene of him just seeing the glow of the Death Star in his eyes before he just gets blown to oblivion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, his own. Talk about being hoisted upon your literal own petard.
Literally.
And I think what I love about him is everything you're saying. We've talked in other episodes about how that's what the Emperor wants. The Emperor wants to be playing these people off against each other. And I think the Emperor, though, he does want true believers, but one thing the system that he has really rewards is ladder climbers. And I think that's why, and Riki and I on superhero ethics, but is connected to Hero, probably put it in this feed at some point as well, did a whole episode about AI, and we talked about how we felt about Tarkin in this, and that's a long story. And I will say I'm generally anti-AI of those kind of ways, but I thought Tarkin was the perfect person to be against Krennic here, because Tarkin is a true believer. And like the book that we read, that we talked about on our book club episode, by the way, if you want to read that, if you want to listen to that, become a member. It's only $5 a month, $55 a year. All the information is in the show notes. But Tarkin truly believes the galaxy will be a better place and will not experience the chaos and horrible deaths of the Clone Wars if the Empire rules it. I don't think Krennic gives a damn. I think Krennic is only out for Krennic. And Krennic, it's like we're like Tarkin is immoral, he's amoral. In that, like, to me, one of the most hauntingly evil lines is when we're seeing all these people see the destruction of Jeddah and all the death, and he's looking at it from space and just says, "Isn't it beautiful?" Because he just does not see the lives of the people he's crushing underneath him. He doesn't see the cause or anything like that. He just cares about, he wants to get the pat on the back from Vader. He wants to, beat out, I want to say Alan Tudyk, or Peter. He wants to beat out Tarkin. He wants to be like top dog in the Empire. And I love it because it's so different than the other villains we get. And the Empire has both.
And I want to say, if you guys love those characters, you would eat up the book Catalyst. I know Danielle's mentioned that before, but basically it's the Galen Erso story, and it overlaps very heavily with the Orson Krennic story. And you get a lot of the behind the scenes of the way Krennic and Tarkin go at each other for years, like 10 years leading up to this film. So it's a really good read. I mean, I listened to it on Audible. But it's one of the, as far as Star Wars books go, it's a little slower paced, I feel like, but I still really enjoyed it. There's a lot of good world building. And if you like political machinations, that's the book, Catalyst.
And it's also, like we even see in the Thrawn books, Krennic and Thrawn are like quietly going at it for years as well, because Thrawn wants all the money devoted to his TIE Defender project, while Krennic wants all the money devoted to the Death Star. And they're both trying to convince the Emperor that their project is the best option.
Yeah.
And who was probably right? Grand Admiral Thrawn, as he always is.
It turns out having a lot of bureaucratic infighting is not actually good for a bureaucracy.
No, but Palpatine could not help himself.
Yeah. I also think one of the lines that again told me early on, this is not going to be your normal Star Wars. One thing we don't get very often in Star Wars is sarcasm. Like there's a little bit, and especially with like Han and Leia bantering back and forth, but like the villains especially have always been so straight ahead. And so when Galen tries to say that Lila, his wife, Lyra.
Lyra.
When Galen Erso tries to say that his wife is dead, and Krennic is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but clearly doesn't seem to believe it. And then she shows up, and he's like, "Oh, look at this. she's back from the grave.
That's
What
crazy.
a miracle.
Miracle.
I was just I busted out laughing. It was hilarious, and it was so cold, and it was just so perfect for that character, and I loved it.
I agree. Yeah, that also got me, and like, it's just he's so good at manipulating people, and he's so cruel. I mean, the way he killed all the lead scientists in front of Galen on Iridu, just oh my god, yeah, I really liked his portrayal, and his look too. It's just like clean white ISB uniform, and oh yeah, it's just and I agree the Tarkin, you know. I mean, did you guys see that that Lucas was being sued over the use of the Tarkin image in this movie?
Yeah,
recently.
Like it's in court right now. Basically, like Peter Cushing's best friend, he like signed over Peter Cushing signed over rights to his image and was like, no one can use your likeness unless my best friend here signs off on it. But Lucasfilm like reached out to Cushing's family. They had given their blessing and signed off on it. They'd even given the money to his agent. Like they went through all these channels, but there's one contract basically like now almost 10 years later is trying to like sue them. It's interesting. But point is, I was going to say that I actually really do like the fact that they I think that was one of the more successful uses of the deep fake technology. I thought it looked just like Peter Cushing and it felt menacing. I felt Tarkin's menace. And I've contended my whole life that he's one of my favorite Star Wars villains because of how it's like the really proper cold menacing smart type. And him and Krennic in a room together, that scene on the bridge, like watching the Death Star be built, is so good. It's so good.
I can't imagine what it'd be like to be an officer in that room. Mommy and daddy are fighting, and it's terrifying.
And then Krennic pushes his luck with Vader, and we get one of the dumbest but funniest dad joke lines. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director. I was like, bro, no shot. Anakin, who does not know he's a dad, is out here making dad jokes.
Especially because it's a double pun. It's like the choke while he's being choked, but also aspirations, which is another word for breaths. But also for aspiring to anyway.
And we get that after the most cold, badass, seeing him be put back together out of the Bacta tank and the slow shadow casting, large shadow casting on Krennic. And then he ends it with that silly ass joke.
Like I said, but then you spend 2 seconds going, "Oh God, writers, why?" And then you're off to the next adventure.
You're off to the next thing, right?
You don't care.
I just chalked up to that. No, that's Anakin being Anakin.
I spent probably 30 seconds going, "Hell, fucking yeah, that's a great joke." It's a great joke.
I love it.
Hell yeah,
and Anakin would totally say that shit. He would totally say that shit.
Vader would not, but Anakin 1,000%. I can see him saying it to Ahsoka.
He totally would. He totally would. All right, let's get back to talking about Jyn though, because we started talked about her. But what do you guys think of her as a character? And especially as the main protagonist.
Badass as fuck. Felicity Jones was a perfectly cast actress for that. I think that she portrayed like you just said earlier, Matthew, how she had that line early on of "It's not a problem if you don't look up at the Imperial flag." It's portrays this perfect mix of clearly had hope in the past, it was shattered, is beaten down and broken early in the movie, but rebels in her own ways, and she is driven initially by selfish reasons, wants to save father, wants her own freedom, but slowly buys into the premise and the concept. And I think that that transition, that character growth was portrayed so well. But by the end, she's all in, and she's emotional. She's connected with everyone. She helps Andor Cassian grow. I thought she was such a great catalyst and a great, especially early on, foil for the way Cassian was, where the two played off each other so well, and then kind of grew together to the point where at the very end, they were so close. And when I first saw the movie, I wanted them to kiss. And since then, I have no desire. I think it's so much better without any sort of kiss at the end, because it's not what it's about. There was not, even if there was a slight bit of romance there, it wasn't what it was about. It was about their relationship, their growth together as people. And that hug to me feels way more emotional as you're dying. And it's I don't know. It's interesting how I saw that differently when I was 19 than I do obviously now as a more formed adult with a fully formed frontal cortex.
You're under 30, adult. Anyway.
27. I have a full brain now, at least.
Okay. Erin, what do you think about Jin?
Oh my god, I always loved her because she just doesn't take people's shit, and she just is always down for a fight. Like, it's so funny. I feel like the first couple times we see her, she just keeps getting snatched by people and ending up like in interrogation situations, and she's like, "Ah, fuck you!" Like, spits at them, and they're like, "Bro, chill."
The fact that on the prison planet, like, she attacks the person who's rescuing her just says so much about her character.
Yeah.
You're being rescued. Try not to resist.
Yeah, no, she is a strong, independent woman. Heavy emphasis on the independent. That's the way she likes it. It's the way she wants it to be.
Yeah.
And she really fights the rest of the rebels for most of the movie as they try and like bring her into their fold. They're like, yes, so let's be a family. She's like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, Andrew's like, where'd you get that blaster? I found it.
Give it to me.
Give it to me. No. It's like, and she was like, I need a weapon. Fuck off. And he's like, all right, whatever. Like,
yeah.
You know, I love it so much, and I have a headcanon that like someone told Leia more about her because like the person Leia grows up to be in terms of being so. But I mean, she was super feisty and independent even as a kid too. Like I just wish the two of them had hung out sometime because I think they would have got along so well. And what I think is amazing about her character, both how she's written and then also what Felicity Jones does with her, is, you know, this was a time when we were starting to like be like, we don't have to always write like the women as like the, you know, person who, the maiden in despair who needs to get rescued. Like, let's write badass women. But so then it was a lot of male writers writing badass women who never really had any character development beyond that. And seeing that she is super badass, that she's super like unwilling to trust anyone, and she's going to have this hard exterior so much, but that she also then makes herself so vulnerable in terms of like, she really feels so abandoned, first by her father and her mother, but then also by Saw. Like, kind of like the same thing happened to her twice, is that she went and hid and then no one came for her, or like the people who she wanted to come for her didn't come for her. And just the way I saw that vulnerability in her scenes with both her dad and with Saw, and how that it didn't feel like it was like didn't match with the hard exterior. It made it sense like, oh yeah, this is what she's kind of hold on to. So of course she has this exterior of like, F off, no one come at me because I don't need you. It worked so perfectly for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I also think it was cool to like see, you know, flashbacks to young Jin. The actress who played Kid Jin also was really good at showing like the fear and like what sparked her like drive later in life, like her love of her father, that connection they shared. And I don't know. I think it the whole movie really does do Jin justice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Down to the final moment, like they put a whatever she said. They put a fuse in your big machine. We're gonna blow it up. So fuck off, Krennic.
Yeah.
Like,
I also love that at the end, there's an old expression: "There's no zealot like a convert," and it's kind of like, all the rebels keep talking about hope and talking about taking the chance, and she's the most against it. And then at the end, she's kind of like, wait a minute, isn't this what you guys all said you wanted? Like, she's the one who believes their stuff even more than they do, and she gets them to believe in it again. Like, just, I cry. I think this movie is one of the ones that made me cry the most, which is interesting because it's such like just an action movie in so many ways, but it has her character work and like the way she goes on that journey and the way that she needs to be the one to inspire the rest of them. When everyone else is trying to be like, hey, maybe hope isn't a bad thing. I just loved it so much.
I mean, I feel like that's the thing with her character is like, yeah, the other rebels believed it and they preached it, but she lived it.
Yeah.
She's the one who actually did that shit. And then she looked around, like you said, like, isn't this what you guys were talking about? Like, come on. And I think that's something that's so true in today's day and age and I'm guilty of it. I say shit that I wish I could do more to back, or that I should be doing more to back. Like, I think all of us have things that we could stand stronger on or be kinder about. You know, nobody's a perfect person, But
Yeah.
I think it's like, it's a cool lesson to look back on and be like, even this person who was the most disillusioned and the most against them can do kind of like a full about face turn when it's for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And when it really matters.
Yeah. And the fact that not just that she does it, but then she inspires not only the people who were with her, but all these others who, as Cassian says, we've all done terrible things, but we're ready to do something better.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about Saw quick?
Yeah, let's talk about Saw. I want to hear Erin go off on this, but I just want to say this was the first time in Star Wars, and I think the first time for a lot of franchises, where a character created for animation then was translated into live action. And I think that is so awesome.
Yeah, no. I, as a girl who grew up on the Clone Wars, Saw Gerrera was always hot. So I will be honest, this was disappointing. Not that Forrest Whitaker is not an incredible man, super awesome, but he's just way older than I had, imagined Saw to be, because the Clone Wars was 20 years earlier. That's the way age works. So I was a little disappointed. I was hoping for Daddy. We got more father. Or estranged uncle.
Estranged uncle was crazy.
It's so interesting to see how strong his convictions, and as a Clone Wars lover, just how much he has warped over time, and how he still believes that he's just as extreme as he was in the beginning. Which I do want to put it out there. He was always an extremist. He literally helped raise what would be considered a terrorist group, So like.
So did Anakin though.
Slay. But yeah, I really loved seeing him in live action. The fucking brain sucky alien he had.
Weird.
That shit was scary. When I finished watching the movie the first time, I was like, maybe I don't like Saw Gerrera so much. That was kind of scary. I didn't really like that.
Poor Gullet.
Yeah, I also was like fangirling when I first saw in live action, because I also grew up in the Clone Wars and was like so freaking excited to see a Clone Wars character brought into live action. But I was like, damn, age has not done my boy well. Like not just physically, but like mentally, he seemed like he had a few screws loose, and then he brought out this, Bo Gullet, this weird freaking thing to suck on, Bodhi's brain. And I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, this is the guy who, like, was too cool and like, back in the day, and now he's like living in a cave with a squid. Like, and he was so untrusting of everyone. He's so paranoid. Like, I get it. Like, he was so extreme. And he really believed. He was so extreme and really believed that, like, what he was doing was necessary for the rebellion to succeed, and like still believes so firmly in the cause in the end. But damn, homeboy was on one in those scenes. He was off his rocker a little bit. But it was a little badass to the way he ends his life. And he pulls out his respirator and he's just like,
come and take me.
Take me.
I loved everything about him. And I'll say I came from the opposite perspective. I had never seen the Clone Wars when I watched this movie. This movie wound up being part of what inspired me to go ahead and watch the Clone Wars.
Clone Wars started in 2008.
Say again?
The Clone Wars started in 2008, Matthew.
Yeah, but then
waited 8
they were an adult.
Clone Wars? That's fair. That just is wild to me.
Well, it was also, remember what I said before, and again, this isn't my attack, this is just where I came from. I stopped caring about Star Wars after the prequels. Because they broke my heart so much.
Right.
And just everywhere we go, Star Wars was so maligned and mocked and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, and so I went back, and people have been telling me to watch Clone Wars for a while, especially Paul, and wanting to, but even without having seen them beforehand, like, to me, this is what always the goal is, like, you want the people who've seen the character before in the other medium to love it, but the people who haven't to love it as well. And I thought everything about him was perfect. And and then when I saw the character in the Clone Wars, I was like, oh, cool. This makes total sense how he gets there. And I saw him as old. It's funny because Forrest Whitaker he always was kind of the sidekick, the actor playing the sidekick character who wasn't as attractive as the main star. But then he plays a very important part in The Crying Game, which was just this beautiful, wonderful, erotic movie that he's important in. But what I saw him as more than anything was kind of similar to Darth Vader. Like, the first shot we have of him is his metal leg, and it kind of like clangs in this very, very like metallic way. And then he has that respirator that's very much like Darth Vader's. And it fit for me because, what is the dark side? The dark side is when you hate something so much that it starts to consume you. And that's his story. That for him, the fight against the Empire became a fight of hate because of the death of his sister. And that by the time of this movie, he is so paranoid and he sees everyone against him as an enemy. And he is just lashing out and killing civilians and doesn't care. He's still fighting for the right cause. And as we'll talk about, like with Andor, like kind of unfortunately, like Mon Mothma by herself doesn't win the rebellion. Like Saw and even more extreme people in Andor are necessary parts of it. We can debate about should they be, but they were. And everything about his character, it made me so happy because those were the debates we were having. I was like, what do we do now? Both in everything in terms of like, how do we feel about people like going to extremes in other parts of the world? Should we be going to extremes in our part of the world? Like, should we be saying like with moral clarity, like, no, Saw's bad, Mon Mothma's good? Like, I don't know. His character was just so nuanced and so rich. I loved it. I loved everything about him.
Mm-hmm.
We're just about at the time we need to wrap up. And any of the last characters or plot points that we want to go into?
Chopper made an appearance, cameo.
And Hera.
And
the ghost.
Oh, nice. Okay. I do like that. Like, first of all, you're like, Blue Squadron, who are they? And then you realize it because they all get wiped out. But then, like you mentioned, there was a scene from the New Hope that wasn't in A New Hope, but they also did put exact shots and voice things from New Hope. So like when they say red leader standing by, gold leader standing by, those are exact things from A New Hope.
Yeah, and they actually took the actual footage from it too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they show why has Luke become Red 5. We specifically see the destruction of the earlier Red 5.
Mm-hmm.
Rest in peace, Red 5. You would have left the rebellion.
Should we end with the hallway scene?
Sure.
Because let's just start with like, people get mad about it because they will say, wait a minute, the only way this works is if all the little indicator lights on Darth Vader's life support, like, why didn't they show up? That's dumb. I think if you better understand the character, and especially if you've seen Anakin in the Clone Wars and you've seen Vader in Rebels, you understand he is, if nothing else, a drama queen. And would he turn off his life support for 30 seconds to make that entrance? I absolutely believe he would.
Okay, I didn't know what you were talking about at first, but now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. He would do that.
Yeah. I mean, it was the most badass thing I think I had ever seen in Star Wars. And obviously it's been replicated in Luke Skywalker doing it, The Mandalorian, and Maul kind of doing it, and the Clone Wars. And I just never knew I needed to see it just, to me, we had never seen Vader at his most menacing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
well, we don't see him do like close hand-to-hand combat. Well, more like lightsaber to flesh combat.
Right.
But I feel like we don't see that from Vader much in like the cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think we see it maybe a little bit in Rebels, but like other than his fights with Luke, we don't see the way that he truly just cuts through regular people.
Yeah.
And just absolutely mowed down like an entire quadrant of people just for fun, to be dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Alex, at the top, this guy, he truly could have force pulled that. Could have saved himself the entire original trilogy. But no, he wanted to be dramatic. And that's the canon in my head. It's not because the other movie came out 30 years later. It's because Anakin Skywalker is dramatic.
I can explain a lot of things under that idea. So, all right. Well, last thoughts on this movie. Erin, you can go first.
Last thoughts. I just I just love this film. I love this film. I just always want to rewatch it. People are like, let's watch a Star Wars movie. I'm like, let's watch Rogue One. They're like, no, it's depressing. I'm like, fuck you. We're not friends anymore. Like, watch Rogue One with me.
Yep.
So yeah, I just have so much love and adoration for this film. I will preach about it till the day I die.
Yeah.
I agree. It is one of my favorite Star Wars films. I think it is. When people tell me that, like, you know, they're not sure if they're gonna like Star Wars, or like they think Disney's ruined it, I'm like, please go watch Rogue One. Rogue One is just, it is singular in this universe. There's nothing, I don't think, like it out there in the Star Wars world. I don't know if we're ever getting anything again like it, but I'm so happy this movie was made.
Yeah. I agree with all that. I think this is one of the most important movies for Star Wars in terms of it opened up, like, you can have a movie without a Force user as one of your protagonists. You can have a movie that's not about the people who win the war, but about the people who win a small little side battle. I remember around the time of this movie, I don't know if it started earlier or after, but the TV show S.H.I.E.L.D. was coming out. And like, I'd enjoyed the MCU, but I loved S.H.I.E.L.D. as a like much more ground level. And I remember talking about, like we were talking about a lot, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Rogue One is very much of a piece. And I just, and then it gave us Andor, which I think is probably the best Star Wars product we've seen so far. So yeah, all around awesome. Well, thank you so much to both of you. We're going to have Erin stay on for some bonus member content, talking specifically about cosplay and some of Erin's adventures, where a complete convention was built around showing off Erin and her cosplay. I'm only exaggerating just a tiny bit. Exactly. So check that out. Of course, there will be links to buy the different books and movies that we talked about in this episode. And if you go through one of those, you're like, what? I want to watch Rogue One again. Let me go rent it on Amazon, or let me like find the book Cataclysm that we discussed. Links to do that are in the show notes. All of those will also help us here at the Ethical Canada Podcasts, and we'll also just get you great books or movies or fun things to watch. Erin, raise your hand. Go ahead.
Nope. I was just emoting.
I'll cut that part out. Okay. All right. So on behalf of myself, Erin, Alex, thank you all so much. My achievements, not yours.
Stay classy, Jeddah.
What chance do we have? The question is, what choice?
Audi.
All right, friends, I gotta run.
Okay, bye.
Yep.